You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter @RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am the Jacob Valk, except no imitation. I've got to start with the Giants firing Joe Judge. It took longer than it should have. Realistically, he should have been fired on Monday morning, but at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. Joe Judge is officially out as Giants head coach. I mean, I had said for a while that the Giants needed to get rid of Judge. And it's kind of funny. Until like 5 p.m. yesterday, you had the sense that Judge was going to stay as Giants head coach. Like, the signals that you were getting from the Giants wasn't that his status was under evaluation. The sense that you got was the Giants wanted to keep Judge around. You gotta wonder what the straw that broke the camel's back was. I heard a rumor that said that it was Judge wanting a say in who the new GM was gonna be. I mean, Judge went 10-23 as Giants head coach. The Giants lost their last 6 games. They got outscored 163-56. I don't care if Daniel Jones is hurt. The Giants, toward the end of the season, were putting out inexcusable performances. So to say that the head coach of that team, the guy who spouts a bunch of nonsense during his press conferences, empty platitudes, should get a say in who his boss is going to be is absurd. I mean, the thing now is you're going to get a wider pool of candidates for the Giants GM job. If you're John Mara, your candidate pool just expanded. Do you think Rick Spielman would want to go to the Giants if he couldn't hire his own head coach? Do you think Louis Riddick would want to go to the Giants if he couldn't hire his own coach? You hear some of the names that were being mentioned, it doesn't inspire a ton of confidence in you. Now, you're going to see better candidates emerge. The Giants needed a restart. I understand that they're in an impossible position with the salary cap. They've got to make some really tough decisions. They have to decide whether or not they want to move on from Daniel Jones. At the end of the day, his GM is gone. His head coach is gone. So I think it's safe to say that the Giants are going to move on from Jones. It's the right decision. Just because there's no avenue for the team to compete next year doesn't mean that you shouldn't get a head start on the rebuild. And yeah, this is going to be a rebuild. Under Gettleman, the Giants positioned themselves as a contending team. Now look, they crashed and burned every year, but was there ever a year where every Giants fan knew that this team had no chance to make the playoffs before the season started? As the season unfolded, obviously. But before the season? No, there was that sense every year under Gettleman that the Giants could do something. 2018, you still had Eli. You drafted Saquon Barkley. 2019, you made the switch to Jones early in the season. But the thing is, you went into that season with Eli as your quarterback. If you were going with a rebuild, Eli wouldn't have started a game, so that doesn't work for me. 2020? No, there were Giants fans expecting them to be in playoff contention. Even last year, there were people that said they had an outside chance. A true rebuild, you know that you don't have any chance. Like, think about the Jets last year. Sure, they made some big moves in signing Corey Davis and signing Carl Lawson. Obviously, drafting Wilson, moving up for AVT, drafting Elijah Moore. They made some big moves, but there was never a sense that the Jets would make the playoffs. In fact, they went out of their way to play young guns. Honestly, that's what the Giants need to do here. You've got to make a concerted effort to play all the young guns on your roster. You've got to invest heavily in the draft. I don't want to see the Giants going crazy in free agency. Unless you're going to sign younger players, steer clear of free agency. Give your draft picks a real chance to play. Yeah, it's going to be a bad year next year. I don't see how the Giants are good, but at least you'll have a direction. At least there will be a plan in place. That sounds very cliche, but at the end of the day, Gettleman's plan didn't work. It was catastrophic. Dave Gettleman is probably the worst GM in Giants history. It's either him or Andy Robustelli. Take your pick. He kept trying to prop this team up as a team that could contend. Losing seasons, failures at head coach. Joe Judge was terrible. Pat Shurmur was terrible. Now, hopefully, the Giants will have a GM and a head coach that will go with the youth movement, see what players are building blocks next season. Then in 2023, when you have a bunch of cap space, you can make your big move. I mean, that was something that I brought up. The possibility of the Giants keeping Judge around just to have an easy scapegoat for next year. I mean, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. The Giants are in cap hell. According to overthecap.com, at this very moment, they are over the cap. Not by a ton, less than $400,000, but still, what that means is you've got to make some really tough decisions. Usually, once you have that mass exodus, that equals lean years. It's hard to replace the talent that you're losing. You want to tell me, oh, it's the Giants, how talented can these guys be? Fair enough, but James Bradbury's not a bad corner. Blake Martinez is on the chopping block, but he got hurt. And his first year with the Giants, he was really good. Sterling Shepard has talent. Kyle Rudolph's not a bad player. If you're going to move on from Evan Engram, it's not the worst thing in the world to keep Rudolph. That's another thing. The Giants have some big free agents. Guys like Austin Johnson and Lorenzo Carter need new contracts. Jabril Peppers, too. Like, there's no way that the Giants are going to be competitive next year. They're going to have to make some really tough decisions. It's not conducive to a winning season. So there was logic to the theory of give yourself an easy scapegoat. The thing is, though, the fans would have rioted. I mean, it's kind of funny if you stop and think about it, how many Giants fans were in on Judge at the end of his first season. Now, this guy is mentioned in the same breath as McAdoo and Shermer. I mean, you would have had no one going to those games. It would have been a miserable experience. And at the end of the day, do you really want to hire a GM who's comfortable with Joe Judge? Do you really want to hire a guy whose primary selling point is that he has a high opinion of Joe Judge? Do you want to hire a guy because Judge is comfortable with him? Or do you want to give yourself the best chance possible to bring in someone who can lead this team back to a Super Bowl? Like, think about a guy like Kevin Abrams or Monty Ossenfort. Some of the guys with a previous connection to Judge that were linked to the Giants. If you're giving Judge a say, if you're bringing in a guy just because of his previous connection to Joe Judge, and then you fire Judge, how do you keep that GM around? It makes no sense. You were setting yourself up for failure. Good job by Mara and Tisch in realizing that. They got there a little later than they should have, but better late than never. You know what may have been the straw that broke the camel's back, in all seriousness? The Giants are used to being the toast of New York football. Like, even if they're not good, they can always bank on the fact that they'll be better than the Jets. The Giants are the big brother. The Jets are the little brother. There is that complex there. Before the Giants fired Judge, you wouldn't be able to find a single person that said that the Giants were in a better spot than the Jets. In fact, some people now would probably still say that the Jets are in a better spot because the Jets have their quarterback, the Giants don't. I understand that Wilson's no sure thing, but they have a young signal caller that they're really confident in. Daniel Jones doesn't fit that bill. I don't think he's going to be here next year. But now, at least the Giants can say, hey, we're going to bring in the right people. We're going to right this ship. We have the utmost confidence in these guys. The Jets haven't shown you anything. It's okay to be optimistic, but at the end of the day, this is a results-driven business. You'll like the results that you're going to get from this hierarchy. I mean, I'll say this. If the Giants hire Riddick or Spielman as GM, and they hire a guy like Bieniemy, or Brian Daboll, or Matt Eberflus, or Brian Callahan, or Brian Flores as their head coach, it's hard to not look at that and say, you know what? That's a really good hierarchy. The Giants are pointed in the right direction. All in all, this is a great move. It's long overdue. Judge should have been fired Monday morning, along with Gettleman. You don't let him retire. All right, you fire him. You don't let him save face. He hasn't earned that right. You want to tell me that's semantics at the end of the day? It's not the most important thing. I'll give you that. The most important thing is figuring out who the right guys to bring in now are. The one thing I'll say is, if the Giants mess this up, and I'm not saying they will, I'm not saying they won't. Alright, I haven't heard any candidates. But if the Giants mess this up, I don't want to hear from Giants fans that this is going to work. Alright, I can't tell you how many Giants fans I heard praise the Joe Judge hire. I can't tell you how many Giants fans I heard singing his praises when they went 6-10. Oh, but they fought hard. They beat the Seahawks. They were one win away from winning the NFC East. Oh my God. Any Giants fan that really thought Joe Judge was going to work really needs to get their head screwed on straight. It was so predictable that this would fail. Another Belichick disciple, a special teams coordinator. Sure, he says all the right things, but at the end of the day, this is a result-driven business. You can't go 10-23 and keep your job. You can't go on a 6-game losing streak where you get outscored by over 100 points and keep your job. It was just so obvious to me that this would fail. It honestly upsets me that other people couldn't see it. I mean, I'm not giving anyone credit for realizing now that Gettleman and Judge won't work. Where were you last year? Where were you when it was clear as day to me that these guys were in over their heads? Where were you even early this season? Were you really calling for these guys' heads? Maybe Gettleman you were. Judge you weren't. You don't get credit for leaving a burning building mere seconds before the building collapses. You get credit for leaving when the fire first starts. I just don't understand what anyone ever saw in Joe Judge. And if the Giants mess this up royally again, if they hire a guy like Luke Getsy, the Packers quarterbacks coach, who's going to get an interview from the Broncos, I'm going to scream bloody murder. I mean, they don't need to hire any of the guys that I mentioned. That's fine. But if you hire a crazy, out-of-the-box candidate that no one's heard of, that's not going to work for me. You tried it with Judge. It doesn't work. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. In fact, I'll say this. The Giants haven't made a right decision in like 5 years. Maybe longer. I don't want to say that this is an important offseason for the Giants, because it really isn't. Important offseasons come when you have a window to contend, or you face a huge quarterback controversy. The Giants don't have that, and there is no quarterback controversy. It's clear as day they need a new quarterback. That's not controversial. But I'll say this, if the Giants don't hire guys that put this team on the right path for success, you're going to see people not renewing season tickets. You're going to see empty seats. You're going to see the ratings plummet. At the end of the day, there's only so much you could do to a fan base and still have them support you. If you keep messing it up, some of those Giants fans may be wearing green at the end of the season. Giants fans have been tortured for such a long time that there is that possibility that some of them jump ship. Make no mistake about that. Moving on now to Jameson Williams. We now know the full extent of his injury. It is the worst case scenario. He tore his ACL. He most likely will be out for his entire rookie season. Now, what does this mean for his draft stock going forward? Well, Williams was the best wide receiver in this draft. Now you've got to move him behind guys like Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Jahan Dodson, Chris Olave, and Treylon Burks. Jameson Williams was probably going to go in the top 10 of this coming draft, maybe even top 5. Now, he'll be lucky to be taken in the first round. It's not impossible that he could be taken in the first round. Think about it this way. If you're a great team, and you really have no holes entering this draft, take Jameson Williams. It makes perfect sense. I mean, I don't want to say that this could be a blessing in disguise for Williams, but at the end of the day, would you rather play for a team like the Jets, Giants, or Panthers? Or would you rather play for a team like the Buccaneers, or the Chiefs, or the Packers, or a team like that? Yes, you want to be taken high in the draft because you get more money right away, but if you're taken a little lower, you have a chance to win a Super Bowl right away. In a weird way, this could be a blessing in disguise for Jameson Williams. Obviously, it's never good to have a torn ACL, but modern medicine is incredible. I have no doubt that Williams will make a full recovery. And think about it. If he ends up on a team like the Chiefs, where he's playing with Mahomes, or the Bills, playing with Josh Allen, even the Raiders, playing with Derek Carr, that's a good landing spot. I mean, think about it. If you're taken 3rd overall by the Texans, you have Davis Mills throwing to you. If you're taken by the Panthers 6th overall, you have Sam Darnold throwing to you. That's not a good spot for a wide receiver to be in. This really can be a blessing in disguise for Jameson Williams. I know it looks bad now, and I feel really bad for Williams. I feel bad for his family. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I know it's hard to see now, but I promise you it's there. Now, it's kind of funny. One thing that you haven't heard people say is, why did he play in the national title game? You know how some players skip their bowl games? They don't want to risk injury. They want to prepare for the draft. I've gone on and on about that a million times. You haven't heard that about Jameson Williams. Why? Because it's the national championship. And how bad would it look if Jameson Williams said, yeah, I'm not going to help you guys out in the CFP. Have fun without me. Good luck. I'll be rooting for you. How do you think that would have played? Oh, the guy would have been railroaded. He would have had to leave the state of Alabama. No, you know where he would have gone? He would have had to go to Auburn. That's where he could have found sanctuary. Or Cincinnati. Or Georgia. He could have gone there. Look. You can't have it both ways. You can't say that it's okay for players from smaller schools to skip out on lesser bowl games, but not say the same thing about Jameson Williams. Where's the line? Seriously, if you want to rank every bowl game by importance and tell me where the line is, you can do that. But until you do that, shut up. I don't want to hear you saying that it's okay for any player to miss a bowl game. Here's the thing. For the smaller schools, those minor bowl games that are played on a weekday afternoon, that's their national championship. The lights are on bright. You have the entire college football world watching. It's when they get their best advertisement for their school. Their commercials are aired nationwide. Those lesser bowl games are incredibly important to the smaller schools. But even then, if you were to tell me that it's okay to skip out on non-CFP bowl games, I disagree with you strongly. even if I were to accept the premise of your argument, we have players skipping out on CFP games. Kenny Pickett sat out of the Peach Bowl. That's a New Year's Six bowl game. What, just because it wasn't part of the national title bracket, it's okay to skip out on? Oh, come on. That's absurd. So unless you're playing for a national title, sit out? So once you get that second or third loss, that's okay? Just sit out the rest of the year? It's a bunch of nonsense. I hate it. Jameson Williams did the right thing by playing. We can all agree on that. But take that point to its logical conclusion. Players that are eligible for the coming draft, that decide they're going to go pro, do the right thing by playing in a bowl game. Injuries are going to happen. Football's a violent game. All right? There's nothing stopping one of these guys from getting hurt in training camp, or a preseason game, or week 1. It's a joke. You're not going to eliminate all risk. Part of being a football player is going out there every week and playing. All right, if you have a serious injury, fine, don't play. I get that. But be out there to support your team, support your school, support your teammates. I hate when players skip out on bowl games. Nothing will change my mind about that. Also, I will say this about the draft. I know I said that the Giants need to move on from Daniel Jones. The Giants obviously have 2 top 10 picks. They have 5 and 7. So that opens the door for them taking a quarterback and a supporting piece. Or even trading up for a quarterback if they think that the Lions or the Texans are gonna take one. Or maybe a team like the Jets will trade down with a quarterback-needy team. I don't think it's the right thing for the Giants to take a quarterback with one of their first-rounders. You want to do it in the second round? I understand that. But I don't view Kenny Pickett as a top 10 talent. They have other needs. Namely, on the O-line. They could stand to add another corner. They could add a safety if they wanted. They have other needs. I understand that quarterback-needy teams reach, but this isn't a great quarterback draft. Don't force it. Quite frankly, you could take a guy like Derek Stingley or Kyle Hamilton at 5, and then at 7, you could take Charles Cross. That would make perfect sense. You could take Tyler Linderbaum if you want to. Maybe Ahmad Gardner. There may be a little bit of a reach at 7, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. Get a bridge quarterback. A guy like Gardner Minshew would make sense. And then next year, when the quarterback class will be better, fill your hole there. Alright, now I'll give you some college basketball Valk talk. And I'll go chronologically. That means that I'll start with Stanford upsetting USC. And when I say an upset, I mean a huge upset. The Cardinal hadn't played since December 23rd. They had a COVID outbreak. So they have to come back in front of 100 people and play the 5th best team in the nation. No one expected the Cardinal to win this game. I mean, even before the pause, this team wasn't exactly what you'd call a world beater. They were 8-4. But this team stepped up and played excellent perimeter defense. I understand that the Trojans aren't the best shooting team in the nation, but it's still impressive to hold a team to shooting just 6 for 21 from beyond the arc. I thought Stanford's perimeter defense was outstanding. Spencer Jones and Harrison Ingram were outstanding. They both had 21 points. The thing is, if you're USC, you had a chance to win this game. In fact, you had multiple chances to win this game. The real reason that the Trojans lost was because they missed 11 free throws. Stanford was sending guys to the line a ton. But this has been an issue with USC all year. Their free throw shooting is horrendous. As a team, they are shooting just under 61% from the charity stripe. They were getting away with it because their defense was so good, but when the Cardinal are cooking like that, you've got to step up and score points however you can. USC just failed. I mean, this was a winnable game for the Trojans. I think everyone outside of Stanford was picking the Trojans. Let me tell you, if I was Andy Enfield, I would have had a really tough time falling asleep after this. This loss would have kept me up. No question about that. Moving on now to Texas Tech upsetting Baylor. That is it. We have no undefeated teams left. I told you this is a good Red Raiders team. I've spoken about this team in the past. I really like Texas Tech this year. You've got Kevin McCullough coming off the bench. McCullough is good enough to start for just about any team in the nation. I mean, to be honest with you, it doesn't knock my socks off that Texas Tech beat Baylor. It's an upset. And since the game was in Waco, you probably felt confident in the Bears' chances, but people are saying this is like a crazy upset. It's an upset, but it's not a crazy one. The reality is Texas Tech was just better than Baylor last night. Sometimes that happens. I mean, everything was going right for the Red Raiders. Bryson Williams had 13 points. So did Kevin Obanor. Clarence Nadolny had 11 points. Adonis Arms had 14 points. McCullough with 12 off the bench. He hit the biggest shot of the game. The three-pointer right in front of Baylor's bench. With 2 minutes and 41 seconds left, put the Red Raiders up by 7. You had to feel pretty confident in Texas Tech's chances at that point. I mean, Baylor wasn't out of it by any stretch, but once Texas Tech goes up by 7 that late, you feel good about their chances. They're that good defensively. I mean, Baylor doesn't have anything to be upset about here. Like I said, Texas Tech was just the better team. That happens. That's part of sports. Any team can be better than any other team on any given day of the week. Baylor played well. Adam Flagler had 17 points. So did James Akinjo. Off the bench, L.J. Cryer had 10 points. Jonathan Chama-Chachua had 10 rebounds. If I was to put the blame on any one player, it would probably be Matthew Mayer. He's got to do better than 3 for 10 from the field and 0 for 3 from beyond the arc. 7 points from him isn't going to cut it. He's got to be better than that. But this isn't a loss that you can bang tables over. Like I said, Texas Tech was just better than Baylor last night. Any team can be better than any other team on any given day of the week. Moving on now to ISU, Kansas. Without question, one of the games of the year. A game that featured one of the craziest endings that you'll see all year. You've got Kansas leading for most of the game, but ISU comes back. Gabe Kalshore makes a three-pointer with just over a minute left to cut the deficit to 1. He had 14 points. He couldn't miss from beyond the arc. Except the last shot of the game, but I'll get into that in a minute. Then you had the offensive foul on David McCormick. You gotta wonder why he was in there in that spot. That was a bad job by Bill Self. He only played 10 minutes yesterday. For him to be out there in that spot, that's just weird. Very weird. But ISU gets a chance to take the lead. Isaiah Brockington misses a jumper. Caleb Grill gets the offensive rebound and hits a shot just on the three-point line, so it puts ISU up 59-58. Okai Agbaji then hit 2 free throws. He was outstanding yesterday for the Jayhawks. He had 22 points. Isaiah Brockington then hit a mid-range jumper. He had 17. Kansas doesn't take a timeout. DeJuan Harris had an acrobatic finish to give Kansas a 62-61 lead. Kalshore put up a good shot at the end. It was a makeable shot. Ultimately, it just didn't go in. It was a crazy game, very exciting game. Both teams played really well. It's one of those games that you don't want either team to lose. It was incredibly competitive. Give DeJuan Harris for making the tough finish. He finished with 12 points. Christian Braun had 13 points. For the Cyclones, Tyrese Hunter had 12 points. Great game. Crazy finish. Both of these teams are really good. This really is a Game of the Year contender. Moving on now to Auburn, Alabama. This is a tough 48-hour period for the Crimson Tide. They lose in the national title game to Georgia. Now they lose at home against Auburn. I don't care if it's on the hardwood rather than on the gridiron. Alabama doesn't want to lose to Auburn at anything. Give Alan Flanagan a ton of credit. We take free throws for granted, but as I just established with USC, that can cost you the game. Flanagan only went to the charity stripe 4 times yesterday for Auburn. Those 4 attempts were the only 4 points scored in the final minute of the game. I mean, it's very easy for a young kid to let the pressure get to him. I mean, even if you're Trey Young from the charity stripe, a pressure-packed spot like that, it's tough. That's a tough position to be in. And Flanagan's not a good free throw shooter. This year he's shooting just 62.5% from the charity stripe. So for him to make 4 free throws in that spot is nothing short of incredible. Give Auburn a ton of credit. They were the better team in this game. Their defense was outstanding. Alabama shot just 35% from the field. And it's kind of funny. This is an Auburn team that doesn't have a great defense, and this is an Alabama team that's averaging the 14th most points per game in the nation. The one thing that Auburn did a lot, which I didn't like, was foul a ton. Alabama shot 29 free throws. They hit 24. If you get your hands up, this game is a blowout. I mean, this game really should have been a blowout. There's no question about that. Auburn played that much better than Alabama here. Jabari Smith had 25 points. Wendell Green had 19 off the bench. KD Johnson had 13 points. I understand that nothing would erase the sting of a national title loss if you're a fan of the Crimson Tide, but it would have been nice to beat Auburn in Tuscaloosa. The mood on that campus right now must be one of just despair and sadness. Those kids have to be devastated right now. Break out the motivational speakers, am I right? New York Jets offseason preview comes your way tonight. Regular episodes of the Jacob Valk Show come your way every weekday afternoon. Until next time, I'm Jacob Valk, and always remember, if you disagree with me, you're wrong.